All right, so find the area of the figure below composed of a rectangle and two semicircles. Round to the nearest tenths place. All right, so area is the amount of squares that can fit inside of a shape. So let's say that the area was 200. That means 200 of these little squares could fit inside of that shape. And that's different than perimeter because perimeter is measuring the distance around the outside. How far is it to go all the way around the outside? Whereas area is talking about the interior. All right, so now that we've went over that, let's go over this. We have two shapes. We have the rectangle, and then you have your semicircles. If you put your semicircles together, it makes one whole circle, okay? All right, now the rectangle has measurements of 6 by 8. To find the area of a rectangle, you just multiply. 6 times 8 is going to give me 48. Let's keep that to the side. We're going to have to add it to the area of the circle, right? Now, the area of the circle has got a diameter of 6, and the formula for calculating area is just pi times radius to the power of 2. So we have a diameter, we need the radius. So if the diameter equals 6, the radius is half of that. So the radius would be 3. So we're going to say pi times 3 to the power of 2. 3 to the power of 2, that just means 3 times 3. So it's going to be 9. Remember exponents, and it's like that. So 3 to the power of 2 just means 3 times 3. It's 9. And I have 9 pi. But they want us to round it to the nearest tenth place. So we're going to have to calculate that out and see what that would be rounded. Well, that's going to be 28.2743, and it's going to keep on going for a bit. And if we round it to the nearest tenth place, we got to look at the number in back of it. And that's a 7. And 7 is higher than 5, so that means we're going to add 1 to the tenths place. Going to get 28.3. And last but not least, we're going to add 48 plus 28.3. Put your decimal in back of the 48, 0.0. 0 plus 3 is 3. 8 plus 8 is 16. 4 plus 1 is 5. Plus 2 more is 7. So 76.3 is our area, which means if we had squares that were 1 by 1, we'd be able to fit 76 of them inside of there. 0.3 means 30% of another square would also fit in there. Okay, we're going to find the area of the figure below composed of a parallelogram and one semicircle. So what I would recommend, I don't think I did this for the last one, but we could do it for this one. I would draw the shapes as separate shapes. So there's your there's your parallelogram, here's your semicircle. Now parallelogram says we have 8, 12, and 6. These are our measurements right here. And one thing is, if it's 8 on one side, then it's going to be 8 on the other. It's 12 on top, it's going to be 12 on the bottom. But this side was shared by the semicircle. We just, separated them ourselves. So that means the diameter of that semicircle is 8. But what I recommend is find the area of both shapes and then add them together in the end, okay? All right, how do I find the area of a semicircle? Of the parallelogram. Here's how it works. You're going to use the vertical height. So I'm going to go back to the original one. You're going to use the vertical height right there. You have to use that number with the length of the side. So that would be 6 times 12. And that would work for any parallelogram. If I have a parallelogram, even though we haven't really talked about these, you would literally just say, okay, what's the measurement on the outside? Let's say that the measurement on the outside was 10. And then you're going to use the interior height. Let's say that was 5. In the one I just drew right now, you would use the 5 and the 10, okay? But that's just the example. So since that one's not the one we have, let's use the numbers that we do have in our scenario. And those numbers are 6 and 12. So all you're going to do is you're just going to multiply those together. So 6 times 12, and that would give us 72. And that's the area of the parallelogram. So if we're looking at this right here, I color it in on the original shape. That's what I find the area of right there, right? How many squares could fit inside of the figure? That's the area value. Apparently 72 could fit inside of there. But we also have to find the area of the semicircle part and add them together to get the total area. So that's what we're going to do. All right, now the area of a circle is just pi times the radius squared. In the picture, though, we don't have a radius. We have a diameter, and they said the diameter is 8. So if the diameter is 8, the radius, you have to divide it by 2. The radius would be 4. And now we're going to use that in our semicircle, okay? So we're going to say pi times 4 squared. That's going to be 4 times 4. That's what that means, right? So it's pi times 16. But this is not a whole circle. This is a semicircle. And if it's a semicircle, that means you have to divide it by 2. So if I divide that by 2, that's going to be, you could say 16 divided by 2, and that would be 8. So we have 8 pi. So we end up with 8 anyways, oddly enough. Last but not least, we're going to have to add these together. So if I said 72, we're going to add that with 8 pi. 8 pi, if I calculate that out, is equal. So that would be equal to 25.1327, and it keeps on going. But if we round it to the nearest tenth, that's only 1 digit after the decimal. And the number in back of the 1 is 3. So we're not going to round it up. We're just going to keep it as it is. So that's going to be 25.1 that we're adding. Let me add my decimal, line up my decimals, put a 0 there. And we're going to have 1 plus 0 is 1, 2 plus 5 is 7, 7 plus 2 is 9. So 97.1 is my total area for this strange shape. All right, so we're going to break this up into 2 shapes. We have a rectangle and we have a semicircle. So my rectangle is 12 by something. Since the radius is 4, the whole diameter would have to be 8. So the whole diameter right there is going to be 8, and that's going to be the measurement of this rectangle. So we got 12 times 8 is 96. That's the area of the rectangle. Now for my semicircle right there, I'm just going to use the area of a circle, and then I'm going to divide that by 2. So that's pi times the radius to the power of 2. And then you could divide by 2 like that. You could show it like a fraction, which I'm going to do in the next step. So we're going to say pi times my radius, that's 4 squared. And then whatever we get, we're going to divide it by 2. So this divided by 2 in fraction form just means divided by 2. All right. And so in the order of operations, exponents go before multiplication and division. So we're going to have to handle this 4 to the power of 2. That means 4 times 4. So that's going to be pi times 16. And then we're going to divide by 2. Now from there, we can say 16 divided by 2, that's just 8. So I got 8 times pi right there. All right, so basically, to get my total area, I'm going to add 96 plus whatever I get from 8 times pi. That is 25.13274, and it goes on and on and on. But if you were to try to round it, we're going to see that this is a tens place. The number in back of it is lower than 5, so we're not going to have to round up. We could just truncate it. Keep it, or actually it's not truncating. What we did is we just rounded down, so it's just 25.1. So now I have 25.1 plus 96, make that 96.0, so we can add them up. So 0 plus 1 is 1, drop your decimal down. 6 plus 5 is 11, carry the 1. 9 plus 1 is 10, 10 plus 2 is 12. So my total area of this irregular shape is 121.1. All right, so in this one right here, we have an irregular shape that looks something like this. So we have 2 semicircles, that makes 1 whole circle. We have 2 more semicircles, that makes a second circle. All the semicircles are the same size, but on the interior, you have a square. All right, so my square is just 16 by, it's 16 around all the sides, so it's 16 times 16, that'll give us 256. All right, now for my circles, I'm just going to find the area of a circle, and then I'm going to double it because we have 2 whole circles when you combine all those semicircles. So it's going to be pi times my radius to the power of 2. All right, now the diameter is what's given. And so we don't want the diameter, we want the radius. So if the diameter is 16, the radius is going to be half of that, it's going to be 8. So I'm going to say pi times 8 to the power of 2. And what that means is 8 times 8. 8 to the power of 2 means 8 times 8. So it's going to be 64 times pi. But then we're going to double that because there, like I said, there's going to be 2 whole circles. So let's double that, and that's going to be pi times 128, right? So we're going to add whatever that value is to 256, and then we're going to round it to the nearest tenths place. And so you get even more digits than what I'm showing right there, but we only want to round to the nearest tenths place. I have a 2 in back of it, so I'm not going to round up. I'm just going to keep it at 402.1. And if we add those together, you can throw a decimal on the 256, put a 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. 6 plus 2 is 8. 5 plus 0 is 5. 2 plus 4 is 6. And this is my total area for this irregular shape. All right, find the area of the figure below, composed of an isosceles trapezoid and one semicircle, rounded to the nearest tenths place. So the first thing we're going to do is break this up into 2 shapes, and then find the area of each one separately. All right, let's give you the area for a trapezoid. All right, so that's going to be 1/2 times the height. Let me label the height in the picture for the trapezoid. So the height is 4 in the picture. It's going to be from one of the bases to the other base. That straight line is 4. So that's what they call the height. All right, base 1. Honestly, you're just choosing one of the flat sides. So right there, we'll call that base 1. And the other side is base 2. So the other flat side. All right, now that we have all that labeled, I'm going to show you how to use your formula. So we're saying 1/2 of the height number. The height number is 4, because that's what we have in the video. And since it's next to the 8s, that means it's multiplying times 4, okay? And then inside the parentheses, base 1, we said that one was 2. Base 2, we said that one was 10. And now we're going to use the order of operations. Parentheses first, 2 plus 10 is 12. Then we have 1/2 times 4, and then this is being multiplied times 12. Well, 1/2 of 4, that means 1/2 times 4. That's 4 over 2, which is just 2. And then that's going to get multiplied times 12. So 2 times 12 is 24, and that's the area of the trapezoid right there. So that's the area of the trapezoid part. Now we're going to find the area of the semicircle. Area is pi times radius squared. They gave us the diameter. The diameter is 2, so the radius is going to be half of that. That's 1. So that's equal to pi times 1 to the power of 2. Well, 1 to the power of 2 just means 1 times 1. So it's just basically pi times 1, which is just pi. But we got to round it to the nearest tenth. And since pi is 3.14 and so on and so forth, we're just going to round it to 3.1. Final step, add that together with the other side. So 24 plus 3.1, we're going to add our decimal, line it up, add your 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. 3 plus 4 is 7. 2 plus nothing is 2. And our final area for this irregular shape is 27.1. And we are done. That's it.